I've entitled this video, Go to Hell and the Essential Workers, not to be confused with the idea of, well, hey, go to hell, I'm an essential worker. That's not what I'm trying to say here. I think the world has gone mad. If you've been paying attention to the media these days, it seems that we've come a long way, baby. The only problem is it's been in the wrong direction. I've been thinking a lot lately about what it means to be an essential worker. Recently I received a letter from my employer stating the fact that I am indeed an essential worker. I thought about that for a long time. What does it mean to be essential? I thought about all the other workers that were not included, perhaps, to be an essential worker during this pandemic that we're going through. I find it interesting that nearly 70% of essential workers do not have a college degree. 3 in 10 essential workers have some college degree, 30% have a high school diploma, while 1 in 10 have less than a high school diploma. And I would fall into that last category. I never did graduate from high school. Today happens to be July 11th, and on this day in 1944, there were 2 children that were taken to the gas chambers and executed. Why? Simply because they were Jewish. They were considered non-essential by Hitler. I want you to think about that for a moment. Think about arriving at Auschwitz in 1944. You'd get off the train and there were 2 lines formed. One line to the left and one line to the right. If you were considered an essential person, you were moved to the line to the right and you were given jobs and sent to various camps and given certain responsibilities. You were considered essential as long as you were able to work. If you were not considered essential, you were moved to the line on the left. To be sent to the left meant sudden death. To the right meant you were an essential worker. Think about that for a moment. Think about standing in line, someone making the decision saying that, yes, you are essential, no, you are not essential. It's frightening to think that children were considered non-essential in the Holocaust. Not only children, but the elderly. So if you were a child, if you were an elderly person, if you were a senior citizen, if you were ill, if you had any sort of deformities, you were sent to the line on the left and were therefore no longer essential. I often wondered what would have happened if Hitler would have been aborted. Would there have been another rat that would have taken his place? And where do you draw the line? Where do you say that this person is not valuable? And how do you know that at such an early age? 2 of the children that I've come to love and admire in my study of the Holocaust are two young brothers. The first is Pierre Pfeiffer, born May 3rd, 1934. Jan-Peter was born soon after his parents arrived in the Netherlands. He was 18 months old when Tommy, his baby brother, was born. In 1939, the parents and the brother of Jan-Peter's father joined them in the Netherlands as refugees from Germany. Jan-Peter and Tommy grew up speaking Dutch as their native language, and they often spent time at their mother's family home in the country. Then just after his 9th birthday, the Germans sent his grandmother to a camp called Westbrook. 6 months later, Jan-Peter and his family were sent to the same camp. On May 18, 1944, Jan-Peter was deported with his family to Auschwitz. He was gassed on July 7, 1944. Jan-Peter was 10 years old. His brother Thomas Pfeiffer, born November 22, 1936. On May 18, 1944, Tommy was deported with his family to Auschwitz. He was gassed on July 7, 1944. Tommy was just 7 years old. I can't imagine that society has dictated who is essential and who is not essential. I know there are people who are lazy, people who could work that don't work, people that perhaps live off the government, people perhaps that take advantage of the system. But that's not what I'm talking about here in this video. What I'm talking about is what it means to be essential. Consider what it means to be essential in the eyes of God himself. I've been reading Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And in this book, he details a lot of his experiences in the concentration camps. And one of the statements that he makes in this book, the world is in a bad state, but everything will become still worse unless each of us does his best. And I think that's a profound statement. We can look at the world and we can say, yes, these things are going on. Yes, this is what's happening during the pandemic. And things are going to get worse. The world is in a bad state. But each of us has an opportunity to make it better. Another statement that Viktor Frankl says in his book, at any moment, man must decide for better or for worse what will be the moment of his existence. Viktor Frankl goes on to say, there are two races of men in this world, the race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man. And one only has to look at the media and look around your community to see that this is indeed true. Talk about being an essential person or an essential worker. I happen to have a t-shirt on this morning that says, I'm an essential beer drinker. I'll drink to that. Of course, the religious community would like to think that they are essential. The other day I put a post on Facebook stating that God does not need religion to be God. And I wasn't sure how people would respond to that, because I think a lot of people would react in a religious way. They would react in a way that would reflect their religion or their view of deity. And it's interesting that people will put their comments and their ideas and their feelings and their emotions all over Facebook, wanting to be heard, wanting to be recognized as being essential, that perhaps they are right in their view of religion. I think the media has done a lot to dehumanize the modern man, as well as governments. People say they don't like the government, they don't like this, they don't like that. Well, you have to remember that governments are made up of people. These are individual people who are creating ideas and expressing ideas. Of course, this may draw conflict with people who are deemed not essential. Fortunately, the company that I work with considered me to be essential. They went as far as to put together a letter and told us that if you get pulled over by the cops during curfew, and all you need to do is show them this letter to say that yes, you are indeed essential, and that they can't question you or prevent you from working. Now, it's interesting that during this pandemic, churches and synagogues and bars and barbershops and so many other businesses were considered non-essential. I know there are a lot of people that struggle with this concept of being essential, or perhaps they've been deemed not essential by their government. And even religion tends to dictate that some people are essential, others are not essential. Or perhaps even religion will dictate that they are right, that their religion is right, and that your religion is wrong. I think that's unfortunate, because I don't think that God needs religion to be God. I think God is God whether or not you have a religion or not. In no way am I trying to equate the current pandemic with the Holocaust. I think that would be a gross misunderstanding of the Holocaust. But there are governments and there are religions that seem to fuel the fire of hatred and chaos. And I think we are living in a very angry time in society. I think we're living in a very chaotic time. Where you anchor yourself, where you anchor your thoughts, your heart, your life, will determine what kind of person you will be in the future. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, I think that there is good and sufficient answers for your life. I don't know about you, but I like to feel essential. I like to feel that perhaps what I'm doing is something important, and that life is not just routine like a machine. It's interesting that when I go to work, the first thing I do, I punch in a number. My number happens to be 371. That's my number. Before I even put my name into the computer, I have to put in a number. And I feel a little bit dehumanized in that sense. company that we often work for will see you as a number. You are referred to as a number. And this was a great tragedy when you look at past history. This was certainly true in the concentration camps. The people in the line to the left were children and older people, sick people. Someone decided what line you would be in. Someone decided that you should go to the left or you should go to the right. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, talks a little bit about his experiences in the concentration camps. Viktor Frankl says, "The best of us did not come back." I thought about that for a few moments. I thought about all the people who did not come back from the concentration camps, those that were executed immediately when they arrived. I thought about the children. I thought about the elderly. I thought about the sick. These were the ones who didn't come back. We will never know what kind of society we could have had these people survived. The children that could have gone on to get an education and to become great people in this world. All we can do is look at the world that we have now and wonder how much better it could have been had these people survived. So this is really a video about a tribute to a couple of young kids that I've come to love. A couple of young children, Tommy, age 7, and Jan Peter, age 10. These were two brothers that, when they were taken off the train in Auschwitz, were taken to the gas chambers and executed. And I'm making this video on July 11th to commemorate their death, to remember their death. This is the day that they were executed. They were executed today, on this day. I don't know what you have going on in your day today, but I got up this morning and I sat down on my patio and I had a wonderful cup of coffee and listened to the birds sing and to look over my backyard and to see the beauty of the sun coming through the trees, sitting there in total peace. And then I remembered this day, July 11th. This is the day that these two young boys were executed. Why? Because they were Jewish. Why? Because someone decided that their life wasn't essential. Someone made the decision to send them to the left. They were too young to go to work, so they were taken to the gas chambers. And just like the elderly, they too were taken to the gas chambers because they were too old to work. They were considered non-efficient. They were considered non-essential. Not only were the ones sent to the left non-essential, but the ones also sent to the right, eventually they became non-essential, according to the views of Hitler and the Nazis. And you have to wonder about that. You have to wonder about the government that was in charge at that time. How tragic that human life had become so cheap and that people were treated less than animals. Someone once said that if you were Hitler's dog, you had a better chance of surviving than if you were a Jew. As I was preparing to make this video, I wondered if Hitler would be considered an essential worker. Do you suppose that he would consider himself to be essential? And why did he determine that Jews and so many other groups of people were not essential? After all, I mean, these were tax-paying people. You would think that anyone would consider these to be essential people. They're generating money for the economy. You wouldn't go up and rob somebody if you thought that they were essential. You might think that they are essential to you because you want their money. But if they had real dignity, they would not do this to another human being. And I think John Lennon said it best in one of his songs, "You better recognize your brother everyone you meet." And of course, this cuts across all lines of religion and politics. When you look at people and you say, well, I don't like your religious views. I don't like your post on Facebook. I don't like you being in this family because you got divorced. Often people will treat other people like non-essentials. And I think this is the tragic thing. Better recognize your brother, everyone you meet. So wherever you are in your struggle, in your journey, whether it's out of Christianity or out of religion or out of politics, or wherever your journey is leading you out of, remember that you are an essential person, that your life does have meaning. Why? Because God created you to have meaning. God created you to have the life that you have And your life is the life that you have. It's nobody else's life. You dare to be the person that you've carved out to be, regardless of people's religious views or political views, knowing that you are indeed an essential person. Some of us are following God in various ways, perhaps that may not seem kosher to some people, but in the end, truth wins out. You can certainly join us in our Facebook group called Following God Out of Christianity and Returning the Teaching of the Torah. Also, all these videos that I make are also put into a YouTube channel called Following God Out of Christianity. Now, if that sounds a little strange to you, think about your life. Think about who you are following. Think about what decision that you are making that are making you the person that you are today. During this pandemic, each of us have choices that we can make. So come and join us in our Facebook group, Following God Out of Christianity and Returning to the Teaching of the Torah, where honest questions do deserve honest answers. I'm Jim Bush, and I want to thank you for joining me in this video.